Interstate 290. Yeah, the Eisenhower Expressway, the Ike. All right. The Chiefs are playing the Bears in preseason, so we're heading to a road that I know fairly well, the 290 Expressway in Chicago. Let's take a look at the route. We see 290 goes roughly from I-90 to I-90 in Schaumburg or so, Illinois, until meeting I-90 again in downtown Chicago. Interestingly, 290 used to be the I-90 main line, and they had a state highway on the Kennedy Expressway, and then they moved 90 over to that and put this as 290. We're going to start out by talking about Eastbound 290. We're on Illinois Highway 53 heading south toward I-90. On the other side of this interchange with I-90, it will become 290, and we see 290 East Chicago, and that Beesterfield Road is going to be our next exit. The next few exits we can't get off at. And 90 is signed for Rockford and Chicago, as it always is in these parts. Heading towards I-90, we're told that for Algonquin Road and Higgins Road and Woodfield Road, that you should get off at I-90, and that will take you to the ramps that you can use to get to those exits, whereas in the main line part of 290, you won't be able to get to them. Going west on I-90, 290 and 53 are signed for west suburbs instead of Chicago, and that makes sense because we're coming from Chicago in this direction, so you're not going to loop all the way back to the city. West suburbs works here. Heading east on I-90, we are getting I-90 East Chicago and O'Hare, and 290 Chicago and West suburbs. They will meet again in downtown Chicago, so it makes sense to differentiate what you're going to meet along the way. Right here's our distributor ramp for 290. It's a big clover leaf, this exit here. So we see 53 northwest suburbs. They're not going to give us a suburb name there. Chicago west suburbs, we're going to exit only. You can also see the IKEA right there. When I lived in Chicago, I bought my bed at that IKEA and then just strapped the mattress to the roof of my car and attempted to drive on I-90 afterward. And that did not go well. It was all... So... had to take surface streets all the way back into the city. If we look at where 90 and 290 meet, it's kind of hilariously bad design. We've got the Woodfield Mall, one of the biggest destinations in the Chicago metro area, right next to this cloverleaf interchange that is right next to another half cloverleaf. So all kinds of potential mess, but it looks like they have done a lot in the way of collector-distributor lanes in order to alleviate traffic here. We're now on eastbound, really southbound 290. Here's our exit for Woodfield Road and 2 Gulf Road. This is the exit for the Woodfield Mall area, and 72 Higgins Road next. Exit to Higgins prohibited from the through express lanes over there, the mainline lanes. It's kind of an honor system thing because that barrier ends before the exit for Higgins, so it's still possible to make that movement from over there, just not advisable. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about highways and the place that they're designed to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. If we look to our right, we see the Woodfield Mall development, that whole huge area, the somehow not dead mall of Chicago, although I haven't been there in a long time. Right here is where our express and local lanes unite in order to form a full 290 just before getting to Higgins Road. We passed by a Legoland, and that wasn't there when I used to be in this area, and it is right over there. I'm not sure exactly where though. At the Higgins Road interchange, we are getting 290 and 53 south for Chicago, and that makes sense. 53 is going to exit here at Beesterfield Road, and 53 is actually the old route here. In fact, a lot of people still call this highway 53. 53 used to be a stub freeway where they put 355 and continues north of I-90, so now it's no longer part of 290. Shortly into it, it goes back onto surface streets. We are meeting 390, the Elgin O'Hare Expressway, which used to be free and is now a tollway and remains the only freeway, tollway, whatever in the Chicagoland area that I've never driven on, and it goes neither to Elgin nor O'Hare. As the previous signs indicated, we're meeting 355 shortly after this, so we're getting 290 East Chicago and 355 South Tollway for Joliet. Good signage there. This exit was requested by Boss King Inc. He doesn't like that 290 is losing most of its lanes and doesn't ever like this sort of situation. Although, as I said, this used to be 53. 53 was the main line and 290 was the new guy. So that would be the reasoning behind this here. Thank you so much for that request. Busking Inc. requested that on the Patreon, and any Patreon member can make requests with a $5 or more monthly membership, one per month. I appreciate all of you who do that. You can also make requests the old-fashioned way with a $5 super sticker or super thanks on any video. Next week will be our last non-Chiefs related video for a while for college football, OSU, and Texas in Columbus, so we're doing US 23, but requests for that are closed by now. So here is where we are. Briefly 2 lanes on 290, but we can see that lanes from 355 are coming to join us, meaning 83, the Kingery Highway, and 83 really should have control cities, and Suburban, Chicago, DuPage, whatever. 83 is a very widely known road. Right here, US 20, the great US 20 is joining us, but we didn't have a way to exit to it at this point. Right here, you can take York Road to get onto 20 West, but they don't tell us that here. We are now concurrent with 20 East shortly, although it will be exiting at North Avenue and Lake Street. We're going to be meeting 294 for Milwaukee at the Hillside Strangler shortly. Here is our interchange with 294 and US 20. I did an episode on 294. You can check out right over there. We see South Tollway, Indiana, and East 290 Chicago stay in the left lanes. Right here is the part where we are parallel with 294. We can see it over there, and we see our exit coming up South 294 Indiana shortly, but we have this exit with St. Charles Road in between our 2 ramps for 294. Here is the exit for 294 South, and it's also the way to I-88, and we are signed 290 East for Chicago. We're meeting 12, 20, and 45 Mannheim Road before long. Did an episode on US 12 you can check out right over here. This is where we go over I-88 and I-88 shall end, and we have our exits for Mannheim Road coming up. Right here is classic West suburb stuff, 17th Avenue, 25th Avenue. I never really know what the avenues are being numbered off of here. I'm always confused by this when I'm in the burbs. And we're meeting 171 First Avenue, better known as Archer Avenue further south, and Cumberland Avenue further north by O'Hare. We're passing by Forest Home Cemetery, and there's a lot of Chicago luminaries buried in this place. To our left is the Forest Park CTA, the furthest extent of the Blue Line, and we're getting Des Plaines Avenue as our next exit. We're getting a left exit for Harlem Avenue and Oak Park, and that left exit there is always kind of a drain on traffic when heading into the city on 290. Here we get one of these pedestrian bridges that you see from time to time over Chicago freeways. And the CTA is on our right side now, and this is the Oak Park station, Oak Park, home of Frank Lloyd Wright and Hemingway and lots of people. Here's the second left exit that can be problematic. This is for Austin Boulevard. As we go under Austin Boulevard, we are entering the city limits of Chicago, and we see Cicero and Central are our next exits. And right after entering the city, we are getting our first views of the Chicago Skyline in the distance here, and this is a great route into the city. Random interchanges that is just East 290. There is no control city. I suppose it would be Loop if there were a control city. Right before we get to Laramie Avenue, the L switches sides and is no longer on our right. Now it is in the median of 290. We have exits for Sacramento Boulevard and Independence Boulevard coming up. Neither of those streets are streets I know too well. Going over us here is Pulaski Avenue. What? It's Pulaski Road. What are they doing? There's no Pulaski Avenue. And we're meeting Western Avenue, the longest street in the city of Chicago. And now we're getting exits for streets that I know pretty well, but quite a bit further north of here. Damon Avenue, Paulina, and Ashland. I lived right at the Paulina Brown Line stop for a year, and Racine as well. This is the L Pink Line crossing over us here, and we also see University of Illinois Chicago is going to be at our next exit. UIC campus is right there by the Circle Interchange. And we are going to be meeting the Dan Ryan Expressway, 9094 West Wisconsin and East Indiana, although north-south right here. Those are fine control cities for right here. Going straight, we are assigned for Ida B. Wells Drive. That didn't exist when I lived in Chicago, so I don't know what the Chicago feeling is on that name change there, but it used to be Congress, and nobody likes Congress, so I imagine people aren't too upset about that one. Here at the UIC L station, and we have a good view of the city skyline and the Sears Tower. Heading further in, we're getting Taylor Street, so that's Little Italy there, and 9094 are going to have their exits, and Expressway ends, Ida B. Wells Drive begins, although we're still in Expressway for a short time on Ida B. Wells. Right as we cross the Circle Interchange, we do get a Route 290 ends, although, yeah, you can see it is still a freeway after we cross the Dan Ryan, and Canal Street is an exit coming up, and we're also going to go right under the post office. In a pretty famous thing here, we've got the road right underneath this giant post office here, so that's pretty interesting. And we're getting exits for Wacker Drive and Franklin Street coming up. Here is after the expressway ends. We've got this drawbridge going over the Chicago River here, and we've got a nice skyline view. And here is a look at the Chicago River looking north and all those bridges on every block. It's awesome. It's a sight like nowhere else. After crossing the river, we do get our exit for Wacker Drive and Franklin. We will end up as a city street shortly thereafter. When I used to go from south of here to where I lived in the north side, I'd always take 290 to cut over at this point and take Lower Wacker around to Lakeshore Drive and then take Lakeshore Drive up to my exit. Going under one building's not enough. We're going to go under the Chicago Stock Exchange as well. And this is also the LaSalle Street Metro Station, where I've taken the Metro quite a few times. We pass by the Harold Washington Library, which is a fantastic library. You can spend hours and hours in there. And continuing toward the lake, we go right underneath one of the L tracks. We cross Michigan Avenue, which used to be US 41 before Lakeshore Drive. I did US 41 video. You can check it right over here about this area. And then finally, yep, Congress, Ida B. Wells ends with a nice Bundy-like ending right here at the Buckingham Fountain. So let's turn around and go westbound. Heading west, I didn't point this out on the way east. Here is State Street, the zero line for Chicago. Also below here is the Red Line subway, which becomes the Red Line L to the north or south. Maybe the only train line in the world that goes to two Major League Baseball parks. As we get toward the Chicago River Bridge, we see 290 assigned west for Aurora, 9094 for Indiana, Wisconsin, of course. Not so long ago, 290 was signed for West Suburbs. That was always what I knew it as. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen the Aurora signage, but I understand it because that's where I-88's going. It's probably better than just West Suburbs. Here is another view of the river and the skyline as we head toward the post office again. Looking from the Dan Ryan perspective, we see West 290 for Eisenhower Expressway, Aurora, and Ida B. Wells Drive as well. Here we are on the other side of the Circle Interchange, and the blue line emerges from underground right after the Circle Interchange as well to go in our median. Passing by Ogden Avenue, which is old Route 66, and I did a video on that. You can check that out right over there. Looking at street level for westbound 290, we get no control cities, just like eastbound. We meet some different streets on the way back. They're not always the same exits, so this way we're getting Costner and Laramie. Right here we get a weird Illinois 110, the Chicago-Kansas City Expressway, that weird route for Forgotonia, the main reason it exists, I think, and 290 proper shield further in the distance. Here's our left exit with Austin Boulevard, and anytime I ever drove this to get out to the western burbs, this was always a mess. We're outside of the city now, and we are still not getting control cities, but we are getting a sign for Illinois Tollway, even though we're not a toll road, but you can get to a couple of different Illinois tollways from 290. In fact, here is where we get to two Illinois tollways, I-88 and 294 at the Hillside Strangler once again. And this was requested by Boss King Inc. He says all the highways have decent control cities, and that's not usually the case with IDOT. So thank you for that request. And I do think, yeah, 88 West Aurora probably is the way to go. 294 South Indiana, definitely the way to go. Rockford, I don't know. Could go with maybe Schaumburg because that probably draws a lot more people from the Chicago area to go to Woodfield or whatever than, I mean, nobody's really going to Rockford. You're not going to sign a local suburb if you're signing something more distant. Probably go with Madison or, you know, you could dream and go with Minneapolis. We will become concurrent with US 20 once again, East 20 for Lake Street and West 20 Lake Street, 1.5 miles. So Lake Street goes away for a while 20 joins us. And this exit was requested by saturnotaku because he grew up in the area and went to high school in Addison. This exit has sentimental value to him, so thank you so much for that request. From the US 20 perspective, we are getting East 290 Chicago and West 290 for Rockford. And now we're meeting 355, and that will also take you over to US 20 Lake Street. 290 West Rockford remains our control city. Taking a look at the Elgin O'Hare Expressway and 290 West Rockford and 290 East Chicago and 355 because the 355 split is just below here. Here's where we're joining State Route 53 once again, Biesterfield Road, and 53 will be concurrent with us north from here. We're getting an exit only for distributor lanes for Higgins Road, Woodfield Road, and Gulf Road, and the I-90 exit is 1 mile ahead. And we can see what it looks like on this distributor frontage road sort of thing. So 258 and Gulf, and 290 and 290 to the left. 62 Algonquin Road is beyond our grasp here. 90 is going to be where 290 ends. So we get toll west Rockford and toll east Chicago. And we see this is mile 0.0, so this is the very end of 290. It'll be State Route 53 north of here, and toll 90 west Rockford. Honestly, this is the other reason that I don't really care for Rockford being on 290 signage, because it's a cloverleaf. It just feels weird to have to go through a loop in order to go in the direction that we want to be going. So that's why I'm not a big fan of Rockford on 290, even more than I'm not on 90. All right, let's take a look at Todd's the way it should be for Interstate 290. I'm going to say eastbound, it should be Schaumburg and Chicago. Schaumburg because that's going to take you to the Schaumburg places, and because Chicago through could be eastbound for I-90. Westbound, Aurora, I like that, and then I'd sign it Schaumburg after that, and then Madison for I-90. Because, why bother with Rockford? All right, thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. I really appreciate it. We will be back with US 23. That'll be a big one next week. And you can check the post section to see what will be the next roads coming up that you can make requests on. And we start the Chiefs in Brazil in a couple of weeks too. Until next time, my name is Todd, and keep on trucking.